Welcome to the Human Flourishing Project. I'm your host, Alex Epstein. Okay, we took a week off last week. I hope you missed the show. Good to be back. Today is probably going to be a short show, and the topic is something that I'm just starting to think about, and it's sort of been on the back of my mind for a couple of years, and it's definitely not something that I've mastered, but it's one of those areas of life where I know that there's a lot of opportunity and I haven't seen much good stuff. So one of the purposes of today is not only to explore this topic, but also to see if I can get any good recommendations from the listeners of this show about this topic. And the topic is cultivating appreciation. And I want to get at what I mean by this with a couple of examples that have come up in the last week. So last Saturday, I was in Laguna Beach, which is where I live, with my girlfriend. We had walked somewhere and we decided to take the Laguna Beach trolley back to where we live. And it was I had never been on it before. It was a nice trolley, but particularly what stuck out at me, Wow. Good clarification of proper usage there. What stuck out at me was, I guess it's what struck me. That's the confusion. So what struck me, I'll now say, was the driver of the trolley. He seemed really, really happy. And I'm pretty good at recognizing when people are fake happy, which is often something that people express. But he really seemed like he was enjoying his job, and he seemed happy to see the people going on the trolley. And in particular, when he would see a kid, he really seemed to enjoy the cuteness of the kid. And I really enjoyed his enjoyment. And what it seemed like is this guy really seems to appreciate the goodness of what's going on, which in this case it was a really nice day. He gets to drive a trolley in a really, really nice place. And he often probably gets to meet people who are very nice and who are quite happy to be there. But something about the way he's approaching it is making him focus on what is positive in the situation. He is able to appreciate it. And you can imagine that other people in the situation would be focusing on other aspects of the situation. So same situation, but very, very different experience because different levels of appreciation. So that was one example. Another example, and it might have even been the next day, was I was taking Uber to the airport. It was the next day. And there was this nice woman who was the driver. I think I'd had her once or twice. And she's obviously not born in the U.S. I'm not sure what country she's from. I would guess Iran if I had to, but I'm definitely not sure. And she ran into a situation when we were at the airport where there was somebody trying to merge into our lane, and she was saying kind of very nicely, no, I'm going to go first. And then the guy next to her, the driver next to her, said something pretty much, I think it was, "What are you doing, you blanking idiot? This is a merge lane," or something like that. It was just very, very rude. And I've dealt with a lot of Uber drivers in my life, and sometimes they do not react well to this kind of thing. Sometimes they react very poorly to much less provocation. But she just took it totally in stride and just said, "Okay, you can yell at me. It's not going to change what I'm going to do." And then she said to me, I was expecting her, just based on experience, I was expecting her to then rant to me about, these jerk drivers, they're always cursing and whatnot. And she said, she really quickly jumped to, this is just the greatest job. I love driving around Orange County. It's one of the best places in the world. And I think she might have mentioned she particularly likes Laguna Beach. And yeah, this is just a great situation. I'm really happy to do it. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting because she's totally focusing on the positive. She's appreciating something, and yet she doesn't have to. Other people wouldn't. And yet, obviously, she's that appreciation is going to make her much happier than if she focused on the negative of something. So that's a second experience. And then a third one was I was listening to, I think it was a speech by Johnny Ive of Apple. I've been listening to a lot of his speeches and interviews this week for various reasons. And then he quoted Steve Jobs, whom I love listening to. And I'm sure I had heard this quote before, but it struck me particularly because I was thinking about appreciation, and I just thought it was interesting what he said. So here's what he said. He was describing the way that that Apple was when he was there and how he thinks Apple should always be. So he says, quote, "There's lots of ways to be as a person, and some people express their deep appreciation in different ways. But one of the ways that I believe people express their appreciation to the rest of humanity is to make something wonderful and put it out there. You never meet the people, you never shake their hands, you never hear their story and tell yours. And somehow in the act of making something with a great deal of care and love, something is transmitted there. And it's a way of expressing to the rest of our species our deep appreciation." One thing I found interesting about, so that's the end of the quote. One thing I found interesting about this quote was the use of the word appreciation. And it stood in contrast to the use of the word gratitude, which is a very, very popular concept these days, particularly in psychological discussions. And there's lots of different statements about how gratitude is beneficial. And I'm sure that's true to some extent. But a couple years ago, I started thinking about this, and I thought I really like appreciation as a general attitude more than gratitude. Gratitude has certain connotations that are problematic for me, problematic for other people. So it's got this idea of somebody did something for me and I'm thanking them. But there's a lot in the world that's great and beautiful, and I don't think of it as somebody did it for me, but I can still recognize that it's great. And then there's this idea of, okay, I'm grateful, and that somehow is supposed to humble me in some way. Like, oh, well, I'm grateful, I didn't do anything, everyone else did everything. So there's an almost demeaning quality to it. And I find it to be insincere sometimes when people are just saying, oh, I'm grateful, I'm grateful, I'm grateful. Sometimes I see people who really do have a lot of appreciation of themselves to say, oh, I need to be more grateful. And there's this idea that somehow self-confidence or self-appreciation needs to be diminished. Whereas with the idea of appreciation, I like that I can appreciate anything that I think of as good. And the dictionary definition I saw of appreciation was, quote, recognition and enjoyment of the good qualities of someone or something. So recognition and enjoyment of the good qualities of someone or something. And I really like that. And I think there's just so much where that can be applied. And for me, the thing I think about most and the biggest challenge with appreciation is, how does one have a proper appreciation of life and of being alive? There's something that when people have a near-death experience, or sometimes when someone dies or when someone almost dies, they might express it as gratitude, but I think of it as appreciation. They have more of an appreciation for life, that things that bothered them once do not bother them, at least in this mode of appreciation. They don't, quote, sweat the small stuff or that kind of thing, but they wake up and they think, wow, isn't it amazing to be alive? And it is amazing to be alive. And it's such a profound thing to be alive in the sense, there's just so many perspectives you can look at it from, even just that, in a sense, what was the chance that the particular sperm and egg from my parents would join and become me? So it's just, oh my gosh, I'm in a sense, there's that kind of luck, although that might be a misappropriation of that concept. But there's just something, it's I'm alive, and then just, I'm not always going to be alive. It's this very, very limited time thing. So just as if I appreciate, okay, let's say I got to spend a day hanging out with Jerry Seinfeld, I would really damn appreciate that day, because I would know this is really good and this is for a limited time. And then, of course, that's true of my life in general, but it can be hard to have that perspective. It can get easy it can be easy to get stuck on something and to not appreciate, wow, this is great, and I'm really here for the positive things. The negative things can be obstacles, but I'm not here to talk about negative things. I'm here to experience and enjoy positive things. So that's where this bus driver and this Uber driver, they really seem to be onto something, and I'm really interested in what are methods of cultivating appreciation. And I want to throw that out to everyone listening and see, do you have any methods or ideas or recommendations on cultivating appreciation, particularly from the angle of how do you appreciate more being alive and appreciating the positive things in your life? So this will be a particularly good question for the Facebook page, which you can go to at facebook.com/humanflourishingproject. And if you want to email me about that or anything else, as I like to say, if you have any questions, comments, love mail, or hate mail, you can email me at alex@alexepstein.com. Also, to get on the mailing list for the program, or if you want to recommend somebody else on that list, it's just humanflourishingproject.com. And that's pretty much it for the week. So short and sweet, but cultivating appreciation. How do you cultivate more appreciation and enjoy your life more? That is the big question this week. I'm looking forward to different answers and suggestions that people have. I will be back again next week. Until then, I'm Alex Epstein. This has been the Human Flourishing Project.